Hi, guys. I'm just trying to get this. You should have your book out in front of you. We're getting ready to read chapters 1 and 2. All right. They can't see you. They can only see me, so it's fine. They can hear how unruly you are. All right, here we go. All right. Freak the Mighty. We're on chapter 1, page 1, and the chapter is called The Unvanquished Truth. Does anybody know what unvanquished means? Shh, quiet. We're just going to do this one at a time so we don't have everybody throwing that stuff out there at once. Not gone. Unvanquished. Is that what you were going to say? What was it? Unheard. Okay. What do you think, Lily? Okay. So, yeah, that's his dictionary. We'll talk about that later. So, just FYI, this is part of the book, I assume, but the very back of the book, if you look at the very back, you're going to see it says Freak's Dictionary. Now, this is a part of the book, but this isn't technically a part of the book. Like, he's going to refer to his dictionary a lot. And remember, I told you that there was a character in this book who was pretty intelligent. So if you run across a word that you're not real familiar with, chances are it's going to be in the back of the book under his dictionary. You can see that he's got a lot of words here that are words that probably I've never even heard about.
I know it's dead. I know that like it's Z in England.
He doesn't have unvanquished on there, but
Yeah, vanquished. So probably
he's got vanquished. It says to defeat in battle, preferably with dragons.
So unvanquished is probably undefeated.
Now remember, this is Freak's Dictionary, though. Is this going to be the Webster's Dictionary definition? Probably not. Okay. All right. So, I mean, look, it says aardvark, a silly-looking creature that eats ants. So this is definitely going to be Freak's Dictionary. All right, chapter 1, The Unvanquished Truth. It's a little dark. Sorry, guys. I got that go. Okay. Ready? All right. I never had a brain until Freak came along and he let me borrow his for a while. And that's the truth. The whole truth. The unvanquished truth is how Freak would say it. And for a long time, it was him who did the talking. Except I had a way of saying things with my fists and my feet even before we became Freak the Mighty. Sounds like Samuel. Slaying dragons and fools and walking high above the worlds. Not Samuel. Sam Collier. Hello. Thank you. I said that the little spot where it says that he liked to say things with his fist and his feet sounded like our character Samuel Collier from Blood on the River. That's what I was referring to. Called me kicker for a time. This was daycare. The year Graham and Grimm took me over. And I had a thing about booting anyone who dared to touch me because they were always trying to throw a hug on me like it was medicine I needed. Graham and Grimm, bless their pointy little heads, they're my mother's people, her parents. And they figured, whoa, better put this little critter with other little critters his own age. Maybe it'll improve his temper. Yeah, right. Instead, what happened? I invented games like kickboxing and kick knees and kick faces and kick teachers and kick the other little daycare critters because I knew what a rotten lie that hug stuff was. Oh, I knew. That's when I got my first look at Freak, that year of the phony hugs. He didn't look so different back then. We were all of us pretty small, right? but he wasn't in the playroom with us every day. Just now and then he'd show up, looking sort of fierce, is how I remember him. Except later it was Freak himself who taught me that remembering is a great invention of the mind. And if you try hard enough, you can remember anything, whether it really happened or not. So maybe he wasn't really all that fierce in daycare. Except I'm pretty sure he did hit a kid with his crutch once, whacked the little brat pretty good. And for some reason, little Kicker never got around to kicking little Freak. Maybe it was those crutches kept me from lashing out at him. Man, those crutches were cool. I wanted a pair for myself. And when little Freak showed up one day with those shiny braces strapped to his crooked legs, metal tubes right up to his hips, why, those were even more cool than crutches. I'm Robot Man, little Freak would go, making these weird robot noises as he humped himself around the playground. Roar, roar, roar. Like he had robot motors inside his legs going roar, roar, roar. And this look like, don't mess with me, man, because I got a laser cannon hidden inside these leg braces. Smoke a hole right through you. No question, Freak was hooked on robots even back then. This little guy, 2 feet tall, and already he knew what he wanted. Molly, can you shut the door for me? Shh. So, I mean, we've already got this description of Freak. You know, he's small. He has leg braces. At one point, he had crutches. He's a freak. You know, we're getting this description of him through the narrator, which I don't think is Freak. Yeah. No, just listen. Then for a long time, turn around. Then for a long time, I never saw Freak anymore. One day, he just never came back to daycare. And the next thing I remember, I'm like in the 3rd grade or something. And I catch a glimpse of this yellow-haired kid scowling at me from one of those cripple vans. Man, they were death ray eyes. And I think, hey, that's him, the robot boy. And it was like, whoa, because I'd forgotten all about him. Daycare was a blank place in my head, and nobody had called me Kicker for a long time. Mad Max, they were calling me, or Max Factor, or this one butthead in LD class called me Maxi Pad, until I persuaded him otherwise. Graham and Grim always called me Maxwell, though, which is supposed to be my real name, and sometimes I hated that worst of all. Maxwell. Ugh. Grim out in the kitchen one night after supper whispering to Graham had she noticed how much Maxwell was getting to look like him. Grim out in the kitchen one night after supper whispering to Graham had she noticed how much Maxwell was getting to look like him, which is the way he always talked about my father, who had married his dear departed daughter and produced, eek, Maxwell. Grim never says my father's name, just him, like his name is too scary to say. It's more than just the way Maxwell resembles him, Grim says that night in the kitchen. The boy is like him. We'd better watch out. You never know what he might do while we're sleeping, like his father did. And Grim right away shushes him and says, don't ever say that. And because little pictures have big ears, which makes me run to the mirror to see if it is my big ears that make me look like him. What a butthead, huh? Well, I was a butthead. Because, like I said, I never had a brain until Freak moved down the street. The summer before 8th grade, right? That's the summer I grew so fast that Grim said we'd best let the boy go barefoot. He's exploding out of his shoes. That barefoot summer, when I fell down a lot and the weirdo robot boy with his white yellow hair and his weird fierce eyes moved into the duplex down the block with his beautiful brown-haired mom, the fair Guinevere. Only a falling down goon would think that was her real name, right? Like I said. Are you paying attention here? Because you don't even know yet how we got to be Freak the Mighty, which was pretty cool, even if I do say so myself. So, again, this is a very different book than what we've read before. So you kind of have to keep following along. The narrator, I'm just going to tell you, the narrator is Max. Max doesn't think very highly of himself. And sometimes when he's talking to us, because he's telling the story, sometimes his thoughts kind of get all jumbled a little bit, and sometimes he even says, like things like, what a butthead, huh? Or something like, he starts talking to us like we're standing right next to him. So you've got to keep that in mind too. The other thing is sometimes when we're reading this, he'll say words that may not sound right. He might say words that aren't necessarily grammatically correct. So again, he's telling the story, so you kind of have to follow along. And he doesn't think very highly of himself. He says that he calls himself a butthead. He says that he was made fun of in school. They called him all kinds of names. He said that he was an LD class. Do you guys know what that means? Learning disability. So LD class, now that is not what it's called now. It's not, I don't think they call it LD class anymore. When my brothers and sisters, when I was in school, they called it LD class. But they don't call that anymore. It's like socially unacceptable. But it means learning disabled. Okay? Shh. Yeah, they just don't call it that anymore. They use different terms that don't sound so name calling, I guess, Huh? Yeah. So we know that Max was in an LD class. We know that he was made fun of. He was name called. We know that his Grim and Grandma and Grandpa, take care of him. We know that Grim is concerned that he looks like him. Who is who? Father. We don't know much about him. All we know is that Grim said something about you better keep a watch over him while we're sleeping. And then Graham says, shush, he's not like that. And then Grim said, he might do something while we're sleeping like his father did. But that's all we got from that. That's all the information that we have. No, we do. Yeah. Yep, his mom did die. I don't know. Won't tell you. You got to read the book to find out. All right, chapter 2, Up from the Down Under. He calls they'll tell you this too, but just so you understand, he calls the down under his bedroom. So because it's the basement. Down under. Yeah. All right. It's testing day, right? They're all laughing. They're all talking. Up from the down under. That summer, now remember, he's telling the story, so keep that in mind. He's talking to you like he would talk to you if you're sitting right next to him. Shh. That summer, let's see. I'm still living in the basement, my own private down under, in the little room Grim built for me there. Glued up this cheap paneling, right? It sort of buckles away from the concrete cellar walls, a regular ripple effect. But do I complain about the crummy paneling or the rug that smells like low tide? I do not. Because I like it in the down under. I got the place all to myself, and no fear of Graham sticking her head in the door and saying, Maxwell, dear, what are you doing? Not that I ever do much of anything. Grim has it fixed in his head I'm at a dangerous age and they need to keep me under observation, like I might make bombs or start a fire, or whack out the local pets with my trusty slingshot or whatever. Except I never had a slingshot. It was Grim who had one when he was my age. The proof is right there in the family photo album. You can see this blurry little miniature Grim with no front teeth, grinning at the camera and yanking back on his prehistoric slingshot. Good for whacking mastodons, probably. Just proper targets, Grimm says, closing up the photo album. End of discussion. Like, oops, better hide the evidence. Don't want to give the dangerous boy any ideas. Not that I have any ideas. My brain is vacant, okay? I'm just this critter hiding out in the basement, drooling in my comic books or whatever. All right, I never actually drool, but you get the picture. Anyhow, this is the first day of July. Already counting down for the 4th and wondering where can I get an M80, which is supposed to have the explosive power of a quarter stick of dynamite or something.
An M16. Where can I get an M16?
And when it
Maybe it's an MP5. An MP5. Man, we're gonna get your YouTube channel banned. Yeah.
and when it goes off, guys, zip it. Come on. And when it goes off, your heart thuds to a stop for a microsecond. Wham! Which is probably what Grimm is afraid of. Eek, eek! Maxwell armed with dynamite. So finally, I get bored in the down under, and I'm hanging out in the so-called backyard, your basic chunk of chain link heaven. Grimm keeps this crummy little mower in the shed, but what's the point of mowing dirt, right? Okay, I'm out there messing around, and that's when I see the moving van. Not your mainstream nationwide brand name mover either. Just some cheapo local outfit. These big bearded dudes in their sweaty undershirts lugging stuff into the duplex, half that's been vacant since last Christmas, when the dope fiend who lived there finally got busted. At first I'm thinking the dope fiend is back. He's out of jail or whatever, and he's moving his stuff back in. Then I see the fair Gwen. Not that I knew her name, that was a little while later. At first she's a glimpse. Caught her going between the van and the front door, talking to the beards. I'm thinking, hey, I know her. And then I'm thinking, no way, butthead. No way you'd know a female that beautiful. Because she looks like some kind of movie star. She's wearing these old jeans and a baggy t-shirt, and her long hair is tied back, and she's probably sweating, but she still looks like a movie star. Like she has this glow, a secret spotlight that follows her around and makes her eyes light up. And I'm thinking, well, this improves the old neighborhood. You're thinking, yeah, right. The goon is barely out of 7th grade. Who does he think he is? All I'm saying, the fair Gwen has star quality, and even a total moron can see it. And the reason she looked familiar is I must have seen her bringing Freak to daycare way back in the dark ages, because the next thing I notice is this crippled up yellow-haired midget kid strutting around the sidewalk giving orders to the beards. Okay. You guys, you got to get past it. You got to get past his language. You got to get
He's standing up. We're like the audience. He's on the stage.
All right, sit down. I'm sorry. All right, sit down. Shh, sit down. The other classroom, when they watch this video, they're going to be like, what is wrong with you guys?
There's a lot of things wrong with this, by the way.
All right, here we go. He's going, so he sees Freak ordering around the workers. He's going, hey, you doofus. Yeah, you with the hairy face. Take it easy with that box. That box contains a computer. You know what a computer is? I can't believe it. By then, I'm sneaking along the street to see what's going on, and there's this weird-looking little dude. He's got a normal-sized head, but the rest of him is shorter than a yardstick. Aaron, stop. And kind of twisted in a way that means he can't stand up straight. It makes his chest puff out. And he's waving his crutches around and yelling up at the movers. Okay, listen. Shh. Hey, Gwen, one of the beards says. Can't you give this kid a pill or something? He's driving us nuts. So Gwen comes out of her house and pushes the hair out of her big brown eyes, and she goes, Kevin, go play in the backyard, okay? But my computer! Your computer is fine. Leave them in alone. They'll be done soon, and then we can have lunch. By this time, I'm hunkering along in front of the place, trying to maintain a casual attitude, except like I said, my feet are going wild that year and I keep tripping over everything. Cracks in the sidewalk, ants on the sidewalk, shadows, anything. Then this strange little dude jerks himself around and he catches sight of me and he lifts the crutch. He points it up at my heart and he says, "Identify yourself, Earthling."
If this was Jacob, if
I'm
Jacob switched out Freak, this would be a normal Tuesday for him.
okay. I'm busy keeping my feet from tripping and don't get it that he means me. I said, "Identify yourself, Earthling, or suffer the consequences." I'm like, what? And before I can decide whether or not to tell him my name or which name, because by now I recognize him as the weird little robot kid from daycare, and maybe he remembers me as Kicker. Anyhow, before I can say a word, he pulls the trigger on that crutch and makes a weapon noise, and he goes, "Then die, Earthling, die."
That's Jacob. Jacob, what Jacob?
Shh, no,
Jacob did it.
stop.
He did it.
I motor out of there without saying a word because I'm pretty sure he really means it. The way he points that crutch is only part of it. You have to see the look in his eye. Man, that little dude really hates me. He wants me to die.
I love to see that.
All right, give me 5. Listen. All right. So this is kind of like your intro into the first couple of chapters of the book. So now, hold on. It's a funny book and you'll enjoy it the rest of the way, but you've got it. What you have to understand, okay? Jacob, 2, everyone listening, you have to understand that the way they're describing Freak, or the way that Max is describing Freak, isn't necessarily to make you laugh. Freak has a disability, okay? So he has leg braces. Max even says something about his head was larger than his body. His body was very small. So again, you have to imagine that this isn't something he's saying because he's trying to be funny. He's trying to, the author is trying to, or the narrator, I guess, is trying to describe, Freak. And you'll get to learn more about him as the book goes on. So here's how this works. We've read 2 chapters. Your quick writes. You have 3 questions. No read strategies. They're just what your thoughts are. Okay? My middle schoolers, you can work on your quick writes tomorrow. Okay, listen. Your quick write prompts are on this paper. Your journal is here. You're reading a half quick write for each, and I corresponded them all to this. I need you to listen. So the first 3 quick writes, chapter 1, chapter 2 is what you're responsible for today and tomorrow. Okay? Because we won't read tomorrow. I won't be here. So chapters 1, and 2. So chapter 1 says, it's titled Max. It says, what's your first impressions of Max? What do you think of him? Describe his inner emotional side. That is the narrator. Max is the narrator. The second question for chapter 1 is, Max has been given nicknames his whole life. Mad Max, Max Factor, Maxi Pad. What do you think about the nicknames? Are they good? Bad? Why? Have you ever had a nickname? Tell the story of how you've got a nickname. Who gave it to you? Why? Do you like it or not? Why? Chapter 2's quick write question is, what is your first impressions of Kevin, aka Freak? What do you think of him? Describe how Max sees him. Write a few details that show the attitude he has about Kevin. So those are your 3 quick writes that you guys are going to be working on today and tomorrow. Does everybody understand what I'm asking you to do? Okay. My kiddos, on Friday, that you're watching this today, on Friday, you're doing the same thing. You've just read the 2 chapters with me. I'm sure you chuckled. But you're going to be working on those 3 quick writes too. Mrs. Pack will give you this paper and this paper. So you'll have these 2. Stop! Ignore Jacob. So these 2 papers, after you finish or after you get them and you've worked on your quick writes, put them in your folder. Keep them in your folder until Monday. Okay? Sorry it was so chaotic. I was hoping that they could handle it, but they can't. Okay.
Do not. We never.
See you guys on Monday.